Hi everyone, been a while, isn't it? Well, it's been a while because there hasn't been any tournaments throughout February. And I'm back now because in March there's a number, and we're starting off with the biggest of them all, the oldest, the most prestigious event there is in badminton, the one all players want to win outside of the majors, the All England. Now, of course, the All England is going to be happening in a couple of days. I'm not quite sure when this video is going to go out. So obviously this isn't me looking at what happened. I don't have that much of a crystal ball. No, this is obviously more of a preview. The draws came out earlier this week. They came out on Tuesday. I've had a look at them and I've compiled some notes and kind of try to surmise my own thoughts on focusing on a few main things within each of the draws, and that's kind of what I want to go through today. And don't worry, I will also attempt, and I say that attempt, to do some predictions. I think when I asked for questions on the All England, 90% of them were, can you predict who's the winners, who's going to win each of the disciplines, etc, etc. So I will attempt it, although I will lay a little caveat now saying that it's been incredibly difficult to do so. I think most of the disciplines are pretty open. I think there's only one that I think isn't as open as the others. But anyway, we'll get to that at the end of the video. Let's get straight into this. I'm going to start with the men's singles. So I think with men's singles, I think most people, as we know, the men's singles events, the men's disciplines in general are very open. I'm looking at this draw right now and I'm thinking, okay, these are the players that I can foresee getting through rounds, but then I'm like, but that player could beat them. And we'll get into a few examples there in a second. But I think out of that, I definitely think, obviously, recently, Xiu Qi and Anders Antonsen, the number 1 and 2 seeds, and they're not 1 and 2 for good reason. I think they've kind of stepped themselves away from the rest, only slightly. That's not to say that they couldn't be upset in the early rounds at the All England, but I think there's a big question as to see whether these two can continue their dominance of 2025. Xiu Qi has won it before, so obviously he has experience. Anders has been in the semi-finals twice, I believe, so he also has experience of having good runs. And I think it was it last year or the year before when Anders was kind of coming back and trying to re-find himself. The All England was the tournament where he had, it was last year, where he had a really good run, where I think one of his wins was against the defending champion Li Shifeng. So I think there's very good chance that we could see a top seed versus second seed final, a Xiu Qi and Anders Antonsen final. And if they do that, then they will definitely secure that kind of thought that they are the two that are going to take that little step above everyone else in terms of consistency in the men's singles. And I say that quite importantly, the word consistently. It's like, yeah, they can step themselves above it, but that's not to say that even if they do, there are plenty of other men's singles players that are more than capable of beating them. But so it's going to be really interesting to see if they can do it. I think looking at Xiu Qi, his section of the draw has a couple of very tricky players. Obviously, he could face Cho Chin Chen, someone else who's been in an All England final before, as early as the second round. We also have Li Zijia in that quarter, which I think was the next thing that I wanted to talk about when it comes to men's singles, because obviously we all know that at the World Tour Finals at the end of last year, he was showing some fantastic form, some of the best form that we'd seen of him in a long time, yet unfortunately he rolled his ankle and it was quite a severe injury. He's only just come back. He's playing this week currently at the Orleans Masters as the top seed. He won his opening round and he plays his second round today. So I think on him, how is he going to do? He obviously loves the All England. He's won it before. He's got to the semi-finals once or twice as well. He's always done really well there. The All England's always been that event that if he's had a bad start to the year, the All England's been the one that's got his year back on track or could actually make his year. And obviously, he hasn't played at all so far in 2025 because of his injury. Can he do well? Yes, of course, based on what I've just said, but I'm not sure we should expect too much of him. His injury was quite severe. Even if he is fully fit and the injury is no longer an issue, just match play alone, tournament match play, that's something that does take a little bit of time. He might surprise us. He could suddenly just pick up where he left off at the World Tour Finals, and if he does that, he's definitely someone that can win the event. But I think if you're a Li Zijia fan, I think just hold on to your expectations a little bit. I think we should just like the fact that he's back, that you know, he's injury free, because that injury was pretty severe, like I said, and I think it's one that could be one of those injuries. You know, a rolled ankle is something that can affect you for years. We just talked about Shi Yuqi. He did the same in 2019. I think his was a little bit worse, but that affected him. He's only really, Shi Yuqi, come back into what we can call Shi Yuqi form within the last year or so. So that took him like 4 years to get back over that. So let's just be glad that he's playing again. I am looking forward to seeing him play. Another match that actually in that top section I highlighted is actually Jason Teh and Loh Kian Yu, an all Singaporean first round. The reason I bring it up is because Jason Teh's had an absolutely fantastic recent run of form. The recent run of form that's actually been able to get him high enough in the rankings that he can get into an event like the All England. So this is his first Super 1000, I believe. So it's going to be really interesting, and I think it's quite fitting that his first match at that is against a guy that kind of puts Singaporean men's singles on the map. Loh Kian Yu, obviously, he's the world champion from 2021, and a player that, yeah, some people think he should have pushed on more, but he's obviously still a very fan favourite and a great player. Got to the final of the German Open, had a terrible Orleans Masters, but I think that was because his travel time back over to France was delayed and all kinds of other things. But I'm not going to go into that too much more. I'm actually very, very interested. That's actually, for me personally, there are plenty of amazing first rounds, but one I'm particularly interested there was one other one, and that's in the next section I look at, which is Jonathan Christie as the third seed, the defending champion section. And the match that I was interested in with that one was Li Shifeng, the 2023 champion, against Anthony Ginting, the player who got to the final last year. But sadly, due to an arm injury, Ginting has withdrawn. That's a real shame, because that was an absolute mammoth, an absolute epic match in the making for a first round. The player from last year's final against the player who won it the year before then, facing off in the first round. I mean, that just gives you an indicator of just how strong men's singles discipline is. But looking at the top seed, Jonathan Christie, obviously there's going to be all eyes on him. He is the defending champion. Can he defend his title? He's had a pretty okay start to 2025. He's in good form. Obviously he hasn't played either the German Open or the Orleans Masters. That goes for a number of the Indonesian players. So obviously he's going to come in fresh, but will the fact that he hasn't played affect him? That's a debate for another time. His opponent in the first round is another player who's relatively new to the Super 1000 events, and that's Leung Jun Hao, a very capable player, and actually a player that has a 2-1 favourable head-to-head against Christie. So that's definitely a tricky one. You know, there's no easy first rounds, let's be honest, in the men's singles, but definitely one that Christie probably will feel a little bit of pressure of. But if he can get through that, he then has the winner of Koki Watanabe and Lakshya Sen. Lakshya Sen's another player who's been in an All England final, has had an absolutely shocking 2025 so far, but can he roll it around? He's someone that I actually, in my predictions, for some reason, something tells me that maybe this is the event that might turn 2025 around for him. I don't know why I'm feeling that way. He's a really good player. Lakshya Sen, obviously, you know, the Olympics, he was the 4th place guy. He had chances to beat Victor, chances to win that bronze. I think since then he struggled a little bit, but maybe he can turn it around at the All England. He's just like Jonathan Christie, hasn't played the German Open or the Orleans Masters. He's actually been training at my local club. I saw him on Tuesday, and he was only doing some very basic drills, so I can't report on what kind of shape he looks in, but I think he'll be very eager. Obviously, in the rest of that draw, you've got Li Shifeng, a former champion. I'm not sure who's going to be replacing Ginting. I think it's Brian Yang. And elsewhere, you've got Pranoy and Toma Junior Popov. Popov had an absolutely fantastic German Open, played really, really well. Actually, was really, really impressed with him in his match against Victor. And Pranoy is one of those players that, again, he's been struggling to find his form that got him so high in the rankings just before the Olympics. I know he's been struggling with some health issues, so hopefully he can show what he's capable of. For me, that's a really interesting quarter of the draw. Moving on to the next one, Victor Axelsen's section. I think that section actually has a really good. I think Victor's got a very good chance to get through to the semis there. I think it's quite a favourable draw for him. There's obviously very good players that are very capable of upsetting him. You've got someone there like right at the top of that section, Lee Chuk-yu, who beat him in the Malaysia Open. Obviously you've got Kodo Naraoka, you've got Nishimoto. Leilan Shi has beaten Victor the China Open last year, was it China Open? And Lin Chunyi, who Victor has first round. Very awkward player for Victor. I think someone that is quite an attacking player that has attacking weapons in an opening round is always tricky. That's exactly what happened when he faced Lee Chuk-yu, and Lin Chunyi is exactly that kind of player. He's not quite as wild as Lee Chuk-yu, but he definitely has the attacking capabilities that could fluster and make Victor susceptible to an early round loss. I do think someone like Victor, if he can get through those opening rounds and make it to the quarters, I think the deeper he gets in, the more he settles, the more he becomes more difficult to beat. So the deeper he gets in, the more of a favourite he becomes for me to win the title yet again. And in the bottom half of the draw, the next section, obviously you've got Anders Antonsen, we spoke about him already. You've got the Olympic silver medalist and world champion Kunlevert Wittetson. Funnily enough, for Kunlevert, he's never been into the quarterfinals of the All England. We all see him as a big tournament player, and he definitely is. But at the All England, which is one of the big tournaments, he can't seem to bring his absolute A game. So I wonder if he's going to change that. He's got a difficult route. Wenhong Yang is a player that if he turns up in his best form, he's really good. He could easily be one of those players that he could lose first round to Kunlevert, or we see him get all the way to the final. He's that kind of player. We just don't know with him. Above them, so who they'd face is Gemke and Alex Lanier. I think Alex Lanier is definitely someone in that section who's a bit of a dark horse for the whole tournament for me. This is his first All England, I believe, so that might play a factor, but he's just been getting stronger and stronger. And I had question marks for him over this year as can he back up what he did last year? And based on what I've seen of how he's played so far this year, I think he's going to do that, and I think he could potentially make a splash at this All England. So, yeah, and elsewhere, Lu Guangzhou, Wang Zuwei, there's plenty of players, but you could say that about the whole men's singles draw. Just quickly side note, for the predictions, I'm going to do them at the end. I'm not going to do them at the end of each section. So, yeah, no, very, very... Oh, sorry. Oh, where's my mouse gone? There it is. Is there anything else? No, I've covered everything that I want to talk about with the men's singles, so I don't want this video to go on for too long. Let's move on to the next one, which is the women's singles. I think the big question when it comes to the women's singles is, can anyone stop An Si-young? She won both her tournaments at the start of 2025, the Malaysia Open and the India Open, and she looked supremely strong in the India Open especially. And she's playing again in the Orleans Masters this week. I foresee that she's probably going to win that tournament. I'd be very surprised if she doesn't. But even if she doesn't, say there's a shock result, I still think when it comes to the bigger events, something where experience and just having that quality comes to the forefront. We don't see many players winning All Englands from nowhere. It does happen, but I think in the women's singles, if it isn't going to be An Si-young, it's going to be someone else that has either won it before or someone else quite established. And I think a lot of people are looking at Wang Ziyi as a player that's potentially that, the number 2 seed. I spoke of in my last episode when they faced in the final from the India Open that maybe this was a sign of could there be a rivalry. An Si-young won very convincingly there, but could we see another final between those two at one of these big events? It definitely can happen. They're obviously more than capable. Wang Ziyi's... Actually, no, let's not get the Wang Ziyi. Let's stick with An Si-young's section because there's another very interesting player in that section, another Chinese player, and that's Chen Yufei, the former Olympic champion. So you've got the current Olympic champion and the former Olympic champion in the same quarterfinal, the top quarterfinal in this women's singles draw, which I think has got a lot of people interested. When I put a post on Instagram asking what are they most excited about the All England, what matches, I think so many people were like, the potential An Si-young Chen Yufei quarterfinal is absolutely was the chief amongst those, and for good reason. Like I said, the last two Olympic champions could face. I think they faced in the final 2 years ago, which was an absolutely massive match. That was so good to watch. Can it happen? Can it happen? And can Chen Yufei upset An Si-young? Yes and yes, although I think it's I don't think we should expect too much from this match. I don't think if they do face, it's going to be the same quality that we saw at, say, the All England final 2 years ago. And Chen Yufei is playing in the Orleans Masters, just like Un Seong, so I think we might get an indicator of her level. She did win her first round, struggled against a player that you probably wouldn't expect her to struggle with, but that's to be expected. She hasn't played since the Olympic Games. Well, she has. She played the Asia Team Championships, but this is her first individual competition where there's just that little bit more pressure. It's in a team event, if you lose, yeah, you lose for your team, but you're still going to play the next day if your team wins, which China usually do. So, elsewhere in that thing, obviously Un Seong, I think looking at the draw, I think she should come through at least into those quarterfinals. I think for Chen Yufei, difficult. Kleiderfeld's a player that can definitely up her game and upset. She's had some really good wins over Asian players in the past. And then above that, Katathong and Wadani. Actually, that's a fantastic opening round. That's a really intriguing one because Katathong is, you know, another fantastic player, but Wadani's been making a bit of a name for herself, so can she kind of solidify that even further? And I think if she can beat Katathong, I think she could also beat Chen Yufei in the current state. So I wouldn't be surprised if to see an Un Seong Wadani quarterfinal. Big call, that one. Might happen, let's see. Moving on into the next section, you've got the two Japanese players, Akane Yamaguchi and Tomoka Miyazaki. They're the two seeds. That's not to say that they're going to be the two that face each other in the quarters. I think Yamaguchi will come through, although the second round, well, you know, a bit like the men's singles, there are definitely, like, you can't really say there are some definite wins and some early and some easy rounds, but looking ahead, in that little section for Yamaguchi to get to the quarters, Ye Xiaomin, I know she withdrew at the Orleans Masters. I'm not quite sure what happened because she won in German Open and was playing fantastic, and she's definitely stepped up a bit. So that's someone that Yamaguchi hasn't been playing too well. We haven't really seen her this year, actually. If I'm trying to remember rightly, have we actually seen her play this year? Something tells me that she's been out. I don't know why I can't remember that off the top of my head. Please do tell me. But even if she did, it's that unnoticeable that the results probably aren't very good for Yamaguchi. Actually, no, now I remember. No, the last time she played was the World Tour Finals, and there she was very up and down. So I'd love to see Akane Yamaguchi doing really well. She does like the All England. She's won it a couple of times. She's got very far. She's been in the final numerous times. And obviously a two-time world champion from World #1, you know, and my personal favourite. So I'd love to see her come through that. I'd love to see her make... I'd love to see an Un Seong Yamaguchi semi-final, but I think it's going to be tougher to come through that. And then for Miyazaki, it's a real test. I mean, she should come through her first round against Julie de Waal Jacobsen, but facing her there is the winner of Zhang Beiwen and Ratchenuk, two very experienced players, two very skillful players, two players that could actually come through that section of the draw. So yeah, very, very interesting. I think my pick of the first round is in that section, which is Zhang Beiwen versus Ratchenuk Intanon. Two players that are very stylish and lovely to play. Two players that when they show their top level are like tournament winning level players. Obviously Ratchenuk has won a tournament this year, and they're just a joy to watch. And obviously being more experienced, they're pushing into their 30s now, but they're still fantastic players. Moving on to the next section, this one is the top seed in it. The highest seed is Han Yue, the 4th seed. For me, with this section, there's a couple of players, one player I'm not entirely sure. It's another Japanese player, Sugiyama. I'm not actually entirely sure about her and her level. So that'll be quite interesting to see. You know, if she's in the Japanese team and high enough ranked to play these events, then she must have a lot of ability. Actually, there's a lot of Japanese players in this draw. But anyway, I think the player that has a really good chance to come through this section is the Indonesian Gregoria Mariska Tunjung. Obviously, it's not a guarantee. You've got players like Kim Ga-eun making a return. I haven't seen her play in a while. You've got the PV Sindhu, who I know has been slipping, and I think she's kind of going into the twilight of her career, but she has a tournament of her life. We know what she's capable of. Simu Jin, we know what she's capable of. There's a lot of, for me, players that, if they come in at their top level, that's a really tough section, but there are also players that we might not see too much of. Again, another one I'm just seeing, Michelle Lee. But for me, the one I think might come through that is Tunjung. I would like to see that happen, only because what happened to her last year. You know, the whole incident with the flash camera. That was just not too pleasant. I don't want to dredge all that kind of story up. I know people will talk about it, but for me, out of that group, I think Tungjung could be the one to come through. And in the bottom half, you know, we've got some older statesman players. We've got got Busanan, and you've got Okuhara against Wang Ziyi. You know, another tough draw for Okuhara. It's quite sad to see, I must admit, because she's such a lovely player and such a legend of the sport. You know, a former champion at the All England, former world champion. Has been really struggling with injury after injury. It always seems that even when she comes back a little bit, another injury hits her. So it's great that she's still playing at these events, but that's a tough first round for her. You know, again, it's difficult to really see how these go because, and I think about this for most of badminton actually at the moment. Minus, say, I think Eun Seong is really the only player or pair at the moment where you're like, she's going to make the final. Think of that for every other discipline. I think you could always have a little argument against certain players. Like, you've got your favourites, you know, players are seeded for a reason, but it's, yeah, it's difficult to pick. The predictions are going to be quite interesting. It's going to be more hunches than anything else. But, you know, yeah, have I got anything else I wanted to say? Oh yeah, that was it. I really do think that bottom half is very open. Very, very open indeed. And who comes through that and to face likely Eun Seong in the final is anyone's guess, really. Another thing about Tungjung, which would be quite cool, would be if she was to, say, get all the way to the final, it would be Indonesia's first finalist in the women's singles since 1994, since Suzy Susanti won her 4th All England title. That's a similar gap, interestingly enough, to last year when the last time Indonesia had a winner, or had it actually an all-Indonesian final at the All England. I believe that was, before then, was like 1995. So it's a little bit further, but it's not too far off. But last year it was men's singles turn. Could we see Indonesia have a women's singles player in the final? That would be really, really something. And actually that's a really good point for me to make, because it leads lovely on to the next event, which is the men's doubles, and the opening thing I want to talk about, and that is talking about the defending champions, the 2-time defending champions actually, Alfian and Ardianto. They're on course to potentially do the three-peat, which hasn't been done since 1980. So that was from Chunjun and Wahudi, a legendary pair. They actually did it 4 times in a row, from 1977 to 1980. Now, the modern era in badminton started in 1980, so if you kind of count that, you could say that was the only time a three-peat has been done in the modern era. But the fact that it broadened, it spanned across both eras, this could be the first time a men's doubles pair does 3 in a row at the All England in the modern era, and that's a time period of 45 years. So, can Alfian and Ardianto do it? A load of other pairs have come close. You've had Yuta Watanabe and Hiroki Endo, the Minions, Ricky and Rexy, Park Ju-bong and Kim Un-soo, and Lee Yong-bo and Tian Bing-yi. 5 titans of men's doubles, 5 legendary pairs, have all won 2 and then failed at the 3rd time. So can Alfie and Ardianto, can they go that one step further? For me, obviously, their form has been pretty good this year, but I said this in a video, I don't think form can be something that you can heavily rely on. And I say that because when they won 2 years ago, they came in off the back of really good form. They were the number 1s in the world. They'd won the Malaysia Open Super 1000 earlier in the year. So obviously, you know, pretty on hot form. Last year when they won, their form wasn't terrible, but it was by no means as good as the year before. And I think they were like world number 7, so they'd obviously dropped. But they won again. This year, they're kind of in the middle. I think their form was a little better than last year, but not as good as the year before, and they're world number 4. So, based off that, I think they can take a lot of confidence away from that, knowing that no matter what kind of form they're coming into this event, the last 2 years they've made it their home. What's not to say that they can't do it again? And obviously, just add to that, they're just a phenomenal pair that, you know, can defeat absolutely everyone. There isn't like a pair, I think off the top of my head, that they like really, really struggle with. You know, like someone you're like, they really want to avoid them. And looking at their draw, where are they? I've got the draw here. Oh, there they are. Yeah, the four C's, of course. Yeah, so that's a tough section, actually. Even in the first round, Chen Boyang and Liu Yi, they were the pair that got to the final in the Malaysia Open Super 1000. Can they do the same thing at another 1000? It would be interesting to see. Obviously, as we know, they're more than capable of doing it. I actually, talking of that pair very briefly, it's going to be really interesting because I said after the Malaysia Open that they could be that pair that they could push on and be really, really good, or that result in Malaysia might be the best they ever do. I wasn't getting any kind of like, they just look like a very good generic Chinese pair, but maybe they can prove me wrong, or maybe they can, well, not prove me wrong, but they can kind of sway it other way. That's not to say that another one result is enough. They need to be consistent throughout the years, but if they can defeat the defending champions in the opening round, that will definitely go some way to saying this is a pair that China can look to in the future. Funnily enough, the last Indonesian pair that were on for the three-peat, the Minions, lost to a Chinese pair in the first round. Although that pair was Zhang Nan and Liu Cheng, who had been world champions. So the level's a little bit different. But interesting that they're on for the three-peat and they got another awkward Chinese pair that have been playing well recently in the first round. Outside of that, actually, let's just stay with that section because you've got. I kind of can move into talking about Korean pairs because just above them you've got another new Korean pair. New. Kam Min-hyuk this time is playing with Ki Dong-ju. So Koreans have switched partners yet again. Obviously they've kept Seo Seung-jae and Kim Won-ho together, the pair that have done really well so far this year. I'll get to those in a second, but Kam Min-hyuk and Ki Dong-ju. So Ki Dong-ju was the player that played with Seo Seung-jae at the Korean Masters last year, and then we haven't really seen him. He's actually playing in 2 events. So what this leaves me with is what's happened to Jin Yong? Is there an injury issue? Are they just resting him? And Korea seems to obviously be focusing on 5. There's now 5 players, so obviously one player is going to be left out. And it's a bit weird for me because the fact that they've got Ki Dong-ju in the mixed doubles playing with Jun Na-hyun, it makes more sense that why not just keep him there and put Jin Yong with Kam Min-hyuk. It kind of solves that we've got 5 players but only 4 can play doubles kind of thing. But we'll have to see. I watched a match of theirs from the Orleans Masters and they're pretty good. Ki Dong-ju is a solid player, obviously Kam Min-hyuk, as we all know. So yeah, that's a potential. Obviously, they've got to play Tam Wee Kyung. He's a former Olympic silver medalist. Further up in that draw, I think the pair that might come through that section and would face Alfie Nardianto is Man Wei Chong and Kai Won-ti, a pair that beat Alfie Nardianto in the Indonesian Masters and are a very good pair. They're going to be difficult to beat. I know they've got the Chinese seeds of He Jiting and Ren Xiangyu, but they've been struggling a bit lately, so I wouldn't be surprised if the Malaysians come through that. For me, the other Korean pair, obviously, well, there's 2 other Korean pairs in the draw, but the main one that people are going to be talking about is Kim Won-ho and Seo Seung-jae. I think a lot of people, after how they've started 2025, they won the Malaysia 1000, they got to the final of the India Super 750. Last week they won the German Open. They are playing again this week in Orleans, which did leave me with a few question marks as to are they overplaying a bit too much for such a big event like the All England. But I think if there is a country or a pair that could play a lot of matches and it not affect them, it is the Koreans and this pair in particular. They've got a very, very interesting opening round against Dietrich and his partner Kedrin. That's a bit of one. And then if they win that, they'd have to face the pair that beat them in India, Go Safei and Nur Azudin. A lot of people, Malaysian fans, are going to be looking to them as big favourites to bring home the title for the Malaysians, for Malaysia, sorry. So that whole bottom section, wow, okay. And then obviously elsewhere in that section, you've got Rankireddy and Shetty, although I believe they are actually withdrawing, because I think Rankireddy, with his father passing sadly recently, I don't think they're making the trip. But, okay, so I kind of skipped ahead of it there. I want to get back to Kim Won-ho and Seo Seung-jae. They will be seen as favourites, and I would back that up. But another interesting thing for the Korean team is that I heard that Lee Yong-dae, the absolute legend of Korean men's doubles and doubles in general, is going as the coach. So it seems to me that Kim Dong-moon, who is the new president, also a former Olympic and world champion, an All England champion, is making strides already and putting in some very experienced players as coaches. Well, Leon Day has experience as a coach, I think, of a slightly lower level. I don't think he's been at a national level, but obviously with his credentials as a player, that's absolutely huge. Have him behind the court, someone who's won the All England, won the Olympics, etc. That's going to be massive. So that could give a real boost to someone like Kim Won-ho and Seo Sun-jae and all the other Korean pairs. So that's going to be really interesting. Last thing I want to kind of talk about in the men's doubles is Liang Wei-kang and Wang Chan, the Chinese top pair. And the reason so is obviously they are the third seeds, and I think looking at their, well, again, the men's disciplines is hard to say, looking at their draw, they should come through, because that just isn't the case. But it's the fact that this will be their last tournament together, as I think the Chinese coaches are splitting them up. I'm not sure if that's going to be a permanent split or a temporary one. We've seen Chinese pairs split before, only to come back mere months later and kind of dominate again. I did a video recently, you might have seen, on Zheng Siwei Wang Chong, and that's exactly what happened. And it was around the All England as well. They played their last tournament together there, and then they split up, but they came back very soon after and refound their dominance. So maybe that will be the same case with Liang Wei-kang and Wang Chan. But having said that, there's more players in the men's doubles. There's so many pairs for China, and maybe they're thinking they've gone a bit stale. Maybe they're trying to find something new. They've definitely got some young, very young, promising players. And Wang Chan and Liang Wei-kang are still young themselves, so maybe they could make two super pairs. But it would be a shame, because they are an exciting pair. And I'm very interested to see how they do. I know they got to the Olympic final, which might counter what I'm about to say, but they definitely are a pair that, when it comes to the absolute massive tournaments, they definitely seem to struggle. I think Liang Wei-kang can sometimes get a little bit tense, and then I feel like Wang Chan tries to make up for that, and that kind of gets him into trouble. I think we saw that when last year at the All England, I think they lost to there was one year where they lost to the Daddies. I can't quite remember if that was last year or the year before. I think that was the year before, actually. But regardless, they're definitely kind of, Liang Wei-kang's nervousness and stuff, they usually start really well, and then it can kind of make them come apart. But saying that, at the India Open, where they lost to Kim Won-ho and Seo Sun-jae, they really should have actually beaten them there. So, and Wang Chan was in a great playing mood, and I think, if they come in at the form that they showed in the Olympics, or the form that we know they can play, they're obviously a pair that's more than capable of winning the whole thing. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see them. I'm going to follow them closely, not just because they're great and they're obviously really exciting to watch. They're probably the most exciting Chinese pair I've seen in a long, long time. But the fact that this is their last tournament together just makes it that little bit more, there's more of a story to kind of see from that one. I guess I've touched on every section minus the top one, so let's just have a look at that one. Obviously, Astrup and Rasmussen, top seeds, and a lot of pressure coming with being top seeds. There seems to be a bit of a curse on players that become number one in the world. It seems that once they get there, then they struggle, and their draw is tough, because Fikri, a former champion of the All England, Daniel Martin, in the first round. That's a tough one. And then, second round could be the other Indonesian pair if the Danes win that, Karnando and Maulana. And you can't overlook the two Lee brothers from Taipei. Elsewhere in that section, Li and Yang, even the Japanese pair are strong, Ong and Teo, Lane and Vendi, again, but that's the same for men's doubles in general. For me, actually, I think there's actually a good chance for Lane and Vendi for some home hopes. We don't get that very often. England are, let's be honest, we're slipping a little bit in terms of World Badminton. Lane and Vendi really are only kind of true, top up their world-class pair at the moment. And although they could easily lose first round to Ong and Teo, because Ong and Teo are a very good pair, I just think with the draw, there's potential for them to actually get a pretty good run. We'll have to see. I think if they are, I think they'd rather, when it gets to the quarters, that it's the Danes that have come through rather than any of the Indonesian. I think the Indonesian pairs are. Actually, no, saying that to know, actually. Something told me, but maybe not actually. I don't know. But I do think that Lane and Vendi, some home hopes. If you're an English fan watching this, they've been playing well lately. They've been stepping up a little bit. I think with some home support, and if they can get through that tricky first round, that difficult. If they can get through a first round, sorry, I say tricky because every round's tricky, but if they can get through the first round and, you know, kind of get a little run going, who's to say they can't do a decent run? So yeah, that's the men's doubles. Let's look at the next event, which is the women's doubles. I think looking at the women's doubles, it's quite an open one. I looked at this draw and honestly, like, this is no disrespect, but it feels like it's quite a weak All England overall. You know, there's plenty of really fantastic pairs in there, but I'm looking at it, it feels like one of the weakest All Englands in quite a while. Just with, I think some of the pairs you look at them that are in there that you probably would be like, you wouldn't usually see them in it. I don't know, that might sound really rude actually to say. I don't know whether that's coming across the right way. It just seems like there's gaps within the draw that are quite open, very open. You know, some first rounds that you're like, would you really usually see this at the All England? But regardless of that, obviously the pairs that were going to rise to the top, there's numerous ones that are fantastic. And actually, I was looking at it and there's potential for an all China, all Japan or all Korean final because all their top pairs are all in the opposite halves of the draw. Now, I know that sounds like a really obvious statement to make because China, Japan and Korea are the top 3 teams in the women's doubles discipline. They have been for quite some time. I think if you look at the winners of the top tier events, I think like you're probably 90% of them have come from those 3 countries, possibly more. So to say that it could be an all them final is like, seems like an absolute no statement. But I say it because the way the draw could have gone, some of the teams, some of those nations could have been in the same section, but they're not, they're spread. So for Korea, obviously you've got Baek Ha-na and Lee Se-hee as top seeds, and then in the bottom half of the draw, you've got their new Kim and Kong pair, who have been doing really well recently. Obviously they won they got to the final of India, sorry, they didn't win. So they're obviously in opposite halves. That could be very, you know, we've seen Baek Ha-na, Lee Se-hee and Kong Hee-young have been in an all-Korean final 2 years ago. So what's to say that with Kim Hee-jong in the mix, that it can't happen again? For China, I think most people are looking obviously at Liu Shengshu and Tang Ning. I think if I'd done this video, I don't know why I would do this, but if I'd done an All England preview, maybe November last year, early December, you'd be thinking Liu Shengshu and Tang Ning are going to win the All England, and they would be that kind of like unsung level in the women's singles where like, I can't see anyone beating them. But recently they've had a few losses to some of the pairs that I'm going to mention in a second. But still looking at the draw, I think they might come through and be, you know, they're definitely capable of getting to the final, 100%. And the Chinese pair in the top, there's actually 2 of them. You've got Jai Fan and Zhang Shushan, who have, you know, got to the final of the Malaysia Super 1000 earlier in the year. And then you can't overlook Li and Luo. They're kind of like running under the radar because obviously you've had obviously Chen and Jai Fan, like absolutely like everyone's attention for China on them, and then obviously Liu and Tan have kind of been the second pair, and you don't tend to really look beyond that. And Li and Liu have been that third pair for quite some, well, I think for a little period, and they're young as well and they're good. So who's going to come from those 2 as are the potential other finalists for China? Your money would be more on Jia and Zhang, but it could easily be Liu and Luo. And for Japan, so in the bottom half, you've got Matsuyama and Shida. They've won the All England before, so we know they're very capable of doing that. I think the fact that in the semis they have Liu Shengshu and Tang Ning, a pair they absolutely cannot do very well against, it might go against them. And in the top half, obviously you've got Fukushima and Matsumoto, the new pair that won the Malaysia Open Super 1000. So can they? And I think separately, Fukushima has won the All England before, Matsumoto's been in the final before. So out of all those pairs I've mentioned that could potentially make up these all-nation finals, these same-nation finals, there's a lot of experience of pairs that have won it before or got very far before. So, and I think when it comes to big events, I'm a big believer that for the most part, experience really does matter because there's so much pressure when you want to play an event like the All England. You know, it's such a big event, it's one all players want to win. So if you've been there before and you've had that experience, then yeah, that plays a big way. Actually, sorry, I overlooked one other pair, which is silly of me. Rin Iwanaga and Kei Nakanishi, the 4th seeds from Japan, are in that top half as well. They're in the same quarter as Fukushima and Matsumoto. Obviously I can't overlook the fact that you don't get to world number 4 if you haven't done well and consistently well. So they're definitely a pair that could also be a final making pair. Outside of obviously those 3 nations, pardon me, I think pairs that have big chances to do really well. I think you've got, I can't overlook Teresa Jolly and Pulela Gopichan, Teresa and Gayatri, sorry, let's just keep it at that. The reason I bring them up, obviously they are a good pair, but they've been to the All England semi-finals twice, and they seem to really enjoy this tournament. They always seem to bring their best events, their best, their level. And I think looking at their draw, I think although they might have to face Kim and Kong in the second round, they do quite well against the Korean pairs at this event. Pairs that tend to just kind of more rally running based, like Koreans and like some of the Indonesian pairs. Gayatri and Teresa do quite well against them. I think they would struggle if they get that far and have to play Liu Shengshu and Tan Ning. Although at the World Tour Finals they gave them a real run for their money. So they're a good pair. Obviously you've got the Imsard sisters. You've got also Pearly Tan and Tina Murata, and I think they're probably outside of those big nations. They're the pair that I would probably say is the next. They're obviously 5 seeds. That tracks. They're a fantastic pair. They've actually got a really interesting potential second round against the Indonesian pair of Rahayu and Ramadhanti, who are making their return as a pair. Actually doing so this week at the Orleans Masters. They've been brought back together. Obviously, Rahayu has been severely struggling with injuries, and I watched a bit of their match from Orleans Masters first round, and Rahayu's got her right knee, heavily taped and bound up. So maybe those injury issues aren't 100%, and so I really like that pair, and I like Indonesian pairs in general. Let's be honest here, but I'm not sure I should expect too much of them this early on as well, especially Rahayu having come back after such a long layoff. I think in that section, I think if they were to face Pearly and Tina, I think the way Pearly and Tina are playing, they're definitely the more favoured pair. Now elsewhere, yeah, there are some pairs that you could say could do well, but really the ones that I've mentioned are the ones that I think have the best chances of coming through. Anything else that... No, I have covered everything. I don't even have to look at my notes. I'm just that damn good. Right, last event, mixed doubles. Okay, so I think the big news when it comes to the mixed doubles, well, there's 2 for me, but the big one that everyone's been talking about is that China have split up their 2 top pairs. They're number 1 and number 2 in the world pairs. So you've got now, so they split up Feng Yanze and Wang Dongping, and Zhang Zhengbang and Wei Yaxin. They've split them, and now you've got Zhang Zhengbang playing with Wang Dongping and Feng Yanze with Wei Yaxin. I think most people, when they saw this split, obviously China, splitting world number 1 and world number 2 up is quite a bold move, but when it comes to China, maybe it's not. They've always got method in the madness. Maybe they're trying to find a new super pair, because I'd say that both those pairs, although they're world number 1 and world number 2, and both, you look at Feng Yanze and Wang Dongping, I think they'd reached like 6 or 7 finals in a row, and Zhang and Wei won the most titles out of all pairs last year. But over the recent tournaments in early 2025, there seemed to be a bit of... I think other pairs were starting to figure them out. I think China were looking further ahead, thinking maybe these 2 aren't the pairs that are going to bring us the big medals, the major tournaments. So they've kind of trying to find, maybe they can find a new super pair. And I think for most people, they're seeing Zhang Zhengbang and Wang Dongping as the pair that's a little bit more potential. And I would agree. I've been thinking a little bit about this, and I remember when I did a post about this, someone said something about the speed factor, that Feng Yanze is very tall, but he's not the fastest, and Wang Dongping was a really good all-round player. She's very solid. Whenever she's dropped into women's doubles, she's done pretty well. She can help out. She's a good rear court player and can kind of cover a lot of those gaps. Wei Yaxin is, for me personally, not the strongest at the back. So how that dynamic's going to work, where Feng Yanze has to cover the back more often, there might be some more gaps of speed. And obviously Wei Yashin is a bit taller than Wang Dongping, but she's not as agility-wise fast. Having said that though, the more I thought about this, Wei Yashin, she has been struggling recently. I haven't seen her play as well as, early 2024, but if she can get that form back, I think she's one of the best front court players. And so I think with her reading of the game, she might not let as many shuttles go through her as someone like Wang Dongping. That's crazy to say of someone like Wang Dongping who's won, the Olympics. But I think when it comes to front court play, Wei Yashin, when she's at her best, is a bit better at reading the game. And so as a result, those weaknesses for Feng Yanzhe might not be as exposed as much. It'll be interesting to see. I'm definitely quite intrigued to see how they do. I do think a new dynamic where was kind of needed, actually. I felt like Feng Yanzhe sometimes would get a little bit bullied by Wang Dongping. I know maybe we're just kind of, I'm looking into this more, but recently Wang Dongping was always getting a little bit agitated, it seemed. So, and I think that affected Feng Yanzhe. So maybe this change with someone like Wei Yashin, it might help him. We'll have to see. For Zhang and Wang, I think they're going to be very exciting, very attacking. I think their speed matches up well. I did watch a couple of their games from, one in particular, from China Super League where they played together. I think they played one of the other Chinese pairs, Guo Jinhua and Cheng Fanghui. And it was 5-11, but they won. And it was really, really fast and entertaining. And I'm just looking at them. If it's early days, I know obviously Chinese players all play together, but it looked like it would work. So yeah, very, very exciting. And I think most people are also thinking, yeah, they split these two pairs up. We could still see an all-China final. They are in opposite halves as well, so that it could potentially happen. The other cool thing that I wanted to talk about is that when was the last time in an All England, if this has ever happened, where Malaysia have had the number 1 and number 2 seeds? I mean, in the mixed doubles, that's absolutely crazy. It's pretty cool as well, I must admit. Obviously, they were helped by the fact that the Chinese pairs split up, so being 3 and 4, they just got bumped up. But that's pretty cool to see Malaysia at the top and the bottom. Can they live up to their seedings? Very, very difficult. I do think out of them, looking at the draws, Chen Tangji, and just looking at general play and Toti Wei, I think if you're a Malaysian fan, put more of your hope in them. And I say that for 2 reasons. One, I think they are a better big time pair. Obviously, we saw them get to the World Tour final, and I think their general higher level is definitely a little bit above Go Sun Wat and Siobhan Jamie Lai, even though they've been having the period of their lives. Another reason is the first round for Go Sun Wat and Siobhan Jamie Lai is incredibly difficult because they've got Dietrich and Supasara, the pair that won in Malaysia. That is an incredibly difficult first round, and actually, I think out of all the draws, that might be my pick. That might be my pick of the first rounds, out of all of them. I'm actually going to be at the All England on Tuesday, where the first rounds, the top half first rounds are played, and I'm going to make sure I am right down by the court for that one because I don't want to miss it. That could be absolutely amazing. Yeah, no, that's a really incredible first round, and also, if you actually look in that quarter of the draw, you've got Zhang Zhengbang and Wang Dongping. Holy hell! Whoever comes through that quarter final, because that's going to be some tough matches. I think is going to be could go all the way. To be honest, I think just the fact that that's such a tough quarter final. Because I didn't say this, like I said in the women's doubles, I'm looking at the mixed doubles draw, and yeah, there's amazing pairs in it. But again, overall, there's a lot of gaps. There's a lot of holes in the draw. So I think overall, the mixed doubles draw is one of the weakest All England mixed doubles draws I've seen in a while. Yeah, because I'm just looking at like Zhang Zhengbang, Wang Dongping, like the pairs they face to get to the quarterfinals. No disrespect for them, but like I don't think they're pairs that are going to travel them. And even the 2 pairs above, so the winner of Dietrich and Siobhan Jamie Lai have got a Canadian pair and a Scottish pair, which again, they're good pairs, but there's like quite a big gap between them and the 2 pairs above them. So yeah, that's quite crazy. Another thing I really want to talk about in the mixed doubles is is the new Korean mixed doubles pairs. Obviously, there was question marks I had at the start of the year when obviously they split their top 2 pairs. up, and it seemed for the first few tournaments, Korea really weren't putting pairs into the mixed doubles. We're seeing it this week in Orleans, and obviously next week in the All England. 2 new pairs that involve 2 of their most established women's players. So the first one is that Ki Dong-ju, who I mentioned in men's doubles, is playing with Jung Na-yun, and Cha Yu-jung, the world champion, is playing with Lee Jong-min. Really interesting, actually. I haven't seen much of Ki Dong-ju on the mixed doubles court. I have watched a bit more of Lee Jong-min. He's quite a recognisable player, and that's because he suffers from alopecia, so he's bald. I don't mean that in absolutely no disrespect. It just makes him very recognisable. But he is also a very good player. I've watched some of his matches on some of the Korean YouTube channels. I watched him and Cha Yu-jung beat Capilla and Crasto, the pair that got to the German Open semi-final last week. Very good pair. They beat them in straight games at the Orleans Masters, and they were very good. And I think for them, again, it's going to take some time. You know, Lee Jong-min he's young and he's inexperienced. I think the fact that they're number 8 seeds might really... That's quite tough to, you know, your second tournament together to come in as 8 seeds at a tournament like the All England with a pair from, and you know, playing with someone who's been in the All England final and won the World Championships. That's a lot of pressure on Lee Jong-min, but watching him play in the Orleans Masters, he didn't really show that he played like he belonged. And I think the fact that he's also left-handed, so obviously Cha Yu-jung's former partner Sosa Jay was left-handed, that means that they're going to slot in quite well. Cha Yu-jung doesn't have to do too much adaptation in that respect. We've sometimes seen it where partners have changed and they're playing with someone who plays a different hand, and there's definitely some, you know, set pieces and some moments where there's a little bit of confusion that takes time. So maybe the fact that Lee Jong-min is left-handed might make that process a little bit smoother. So yeah, no, very interested to see how they do. And I think looking at their draw, yeah, they're 8 seeds, but the draw's not bad for them. Their little section of the draw is good. Wait a second on this draw. Yeah. So yeah, you know, I think they could actually have a pretty good run. Definitely. So I'm sad to say that I won't get to see them play live, but I'm quite interested. I'm definitely watching it on the TV. Is there anything else I wanted to talk about? No, again, I've covered everything I kind of wanted to talk about. The one section I haven't really talked about is the bottom part of the top half. And the reason I bring it in is, again, it's quite open. There are definitely some open sections in the draw. And so maybe we might see another European pair go quite far in Tong Jukel and Del Rue. But the pair that I'm quite excited for, and I think could make a splash, and I've said this before, one week they back me up, one week they don't, and that's Guo Zhenhua and Cheng Fanghui of China, the 7 seeds. There's something about Guo Zhenhua, I really think he's a very good player. Maybe my faith is too strong, I don't know, but they're very good, so it'd be very interesting to see how they get on. I'm quite excited to watch them, and that's another pair that I will watch on that Tuesday if I have a chance. I do have to do some work for BWF, but I will try to watch as much as I can. Right, okay, prediction time. I've put this off long enough. I want to preface it very quickly. I know I said this before, but this has been incredibly difficult. Usually when I do predictions, if anyone asks me, especially at these kind of tournaments, usually I say, at least give me one round to see the players, because then you can kind of see the form they're in. But then I guess that kind of defeats the point of a prediction, and maybe it's a bit of a cop-out. But that's what I usually do. But I have thought about this. Some of my choices, yeah, no, it was difficult. It was difficult. I'm just going to put that out there. But this is all in the name of fun. It's, you know, we'll just have to go with it. So without any kind of more hesitation, I've hesitated long enough, let's just go with it. So men's singles, well, actually, sorry, before I get into this, I've kind of done it with, I picked 3 players that I've kind of predicted to do well, if not win, and a dark horse as well. And when it comes to the dark horse, my one stipulation I put on myself was they can't be seeded. Otherwise, to be honest, are they really a dark horse? Yeah, you can argue that, but I've tried to go for my dark horse, someone who's unseeded, so bear that in mind. So men's singles, I've gone for Shiuchi, Annas, and Victor. 3 players all inside the top 4, but 3 players who have done well at the All England. Obviously, Shiuchi has won it before, Victor's won it twice before. Is it twice? Yeah, I think it's twice. But he's been in the final more than that. And Anders has had 2 semi-finals. Obviously, Chi and Anders Antonsen have been in great form in 2025. Again, like I said earlier in the video, they're the 2 players that people are kind of seeing maybe stepping above everyone else. And I just think you can never rule out Viktor Axelsen. He won in Germany. He was by no means faultless. But I felt that there were some signs that he was getting his game back, and I think having Peter Gader in his corner is already starting to do some good things for him. And I know that he is targeting the All England and the World Championship, so he's in his 30s as he's moving into his later stages of his career. I think he's really going to focus on 1 or 2 tournaments a year, and All England's one of them. So if Victor's putting his mind towards it, and I think if he can get over maybe the first round or 2 rounds and get into the tournament, he'll be very difficult to beat. My dark horse, I've gone for a bit, is Alex Lanier. I just think that every time I watch him, he's just been getting stronger and stronger and stronger. I know he's in a tough part. He's in a quarter where he could face, he's got to get through Gemk, who's no pushover. He might then have to face Kunlut Vititsan, and then Anders, and then possibly Victor. It's like a route that's pretty tough, but I think he's definitely someone very capable of causing an upset and making a real splash in his first All England. And I mean, the men's singles, come on, it's full of players that are capable of, like, you might not think they could do it, and they can. And I'm just going to go with Alex Lanier, just because I think that his rate of progression, it's showing no signs of slowing down right now. So I think there's massive potential for him to have a really strong run in this tournament. Okay, women's singles, I've gone for An Seong, Tung Jung, and Wang Ziyi. Obviously, An Seong's a pretty obvious choice. I think Wang Ziyi's also a pretty obvious, steady choice. For me, Tung Jung, I said earlier in this video that I think her draw is okay. It's pretty nice. The one thing I guess that could go against Tung Jung that I didn't mention earlier was that she has only recently been married. So whether that's affected any preparations, any training, I don't know. Maybe it's actually could help her, or it could be a hindrance. We'll have to wait and see. But I think the fact that she's played pretty well, some of her best badminton I've seen over the last couple of years has always come at the All England. And so I think with that in mind, she could do pretty solidly here. My dark horse is Ratchanok Intanon, someone who has been in a final of the All England before, has won a tournament this year so far. She seems to be refinding her form. And I just think that, again, if she can have... And I think she's in a section of the draw where, again, there's possibilities. Her seed is Miyazaki, and then her highest seed is Akane Yamaguchi, who hasn't been playing particularly well. I mean, she's got a tough round right at the start. She got Zhang Beiwen, who's, again, one of those kind of players. I talked about their match earlier in this video, but I think where Ratchanok's positioned, the way she's been playing this year, and her newfound kind of form and motivation might be the wrong word, but inspiration maybe. I just think all the stars were aligning for potentially she could do really well. Men's doubles, probably the hardest one, but I've gone for some obvious names. I've gone for Kim Won-ho and Seo Jae, Alfian and Ardianto, and Wang Chang and Liang Wei-kung. I think for the Koreans, it's because they've been playing so well. They won in Malaysia, runner-up India, won Germany, and it looks like they could potentially win in France again this week. We'll just have to wait and see on that one. Obviously, they're the pair to beat, I guess you could call it, even though they've only played a few tournaments together, but still. For Alfie and Ardianto, like I said, they are the 2-time defending champions. I just don't think you can overlook that fact. And the fact that I mentioned earlier, one year they won it from a really strong start to 2025. Last year they won it from a not so strong. This year they're in the middle. So I don't think recent form can really play a factor in it. Yeah, so I just cannot actually do this without mentioning them. And the Chinese, I know I mentioned that they sometimes at these bigger events can falter, Liang Wei-kung especially, but when I watched them in India, I felt that they were actually playing really well, and they should have beaten the Koreans of Kim Won-ho and Seo Jae. And they're just a fantastic pair. They are the Olympic silver medalists. You know, they're third-ranked seeds. I think if they can just get it together, they're going to be very difficult to beat. My dark horses, I've gone for 2, and again, this one you could really argue is anyone's game, but I've gone for Karnando and Maulana from Indonesia, and from Malaysia, Man Wei Chong and Kai Wen T. I don't know why I went for Karnando and Maulana. It was a toss-up, to be honest, between those 2 Indonesian pairs in the top half, and I don't know why, something drew me towards them. that's the explanation I've got. It's not great, I know. And for the Malaysians, I think they played really well when they won the Indonesian Masters. I know they had a bit of a bad match against Kim Won Ho and Sursun Jae in France this week in the first round, but they're a really, really good pair and incredibly capable of doing insanely well in this tournament. Moving on to women's doubles, I've gone for Beckman, Lee So-hee, Lu Shengshu and Tan Ning, and Matsumoto and Fukushima. I went for the top 2 seeds. Again, there's a few toss-ups in this one, but I went for Beckman, Lee So-hee just because they've been in a final with the All England before. They won it, didn't they? No, they were runner-up. Obviously, one of ones, and they're a bit up and down recently, but I think when it comes to a big tournament like they showed at the World Tour Finals, which they won, they could come forward and do really well again. Went for Lu Shengshu and Tan Ning. I know they've had a few odd losses in their last few tournaments, but I think I just got a feeling that they're probably going to, with the time they've had away from competition, take those losses on the chin, reevaluate what they need to do, and come back stronger. And it is the All England, so it is one of those peak tournaments. And I think when it comes to those big ones, a pair like them will step up. And I've gone for Matsumoto and Fukushima. I think they've been playing really, really well lately. Obviously, they're quite a new pair, and they've got plenty of experience between them and experience at the All England. Matsumoto has been in the final before, and Fukushima has won it before. So I think, for me, it was a toss-up between that Japanese pair and Shida Matsuyama, who are in a similar boat. But I think with Shida and Matsuyama being in the same half as Lu and Tan, who they struggle with, that's what made me go, right, Matsumoto and Fukushima. And my dark horse is a real dark horse. I've gone for Teresa and Gayatri from India. It was quite difficult because I think outside of the seeds, like I said earlier, the women's doubles draw is a little bit thin. I think outside of the seeds, there's only maybe 1 or 2 pairs that you really could say have got a good chance. And for me, it was between this Indian pair and the Indonesian pair of Rahayu and Ramadhanti. And I think just the fact that Rahayu hasn't played much and they haven't been together for a while, and then add to the fact that Teresa and Gayatri seem to really enjoy playing at the All England and have had some really fantastic results the last 2 years. Was it last 2 years or was it the 2? My brain isn't working today. But they've had 2 semi-finals at the All England, so they clearly do quite well there. In the mixed doubles, I've gone for Deechapon and Supasara, Jiang Zhenbang and Wang Dongping, and Chen Tangji and Toei Wei. Deechapon and Supasara, they won the Malaysia Open. I know they've got the top seeds in the very first round, an incredibly tough draw for the Malaysians. And I think Deechapon and Supasara, again, Deechapon's got good experience in terms of being a world champion and all that kind of stuff. Obviously been in the All England semi-finals and got quite far. I know Supasara might find the pressure quite hard, but like I said early in the video, I think there's quite a number of pairs where they're made up of these new pairs where one of them has had the experience at, say, All England and one doesn't, and so I'm not sure that can be too much of a factor. So I've gone for Deechapon Supasara. I just really think Deechapon's an amazing player, and obviously showing in his recent form in January, and I think they're going to carry it over to here. I've gone for that Chinese pair. They're in the same quarter final, Jiang Zhenbang and Wang Dongping and Deechapon, and so I think whoever comes from that quarter will likely make the final. I went for that pair of the other Chinese just because I think they've got a little bit more potential, and I think the fact that, I just think they're just a little bit better. And I went for Chen and To because the top level that they can bring is so high that if they're able to bring it, they're going to be very difficult to beat. And my dark horse is actually who Chen and To have in the first round, and that's Rayan and Gloria. They got to the final at the German Open, so that's a really good start to their pairing. I've always quite liked Rayan. Obviously, he's very skillful. I loved watching his dad play when he was young, and they're almost like a carbon copy of each other. Gloria seems to be, whoever she partners with, seems to do really well. She's definitely a very good mixed player. I think, obviously, I said that 2 picks, they're playing each in the first round, and they actually were playing today, as I'm recording this, in the Orleans Masters, so that'd be really interesting. I have a feeling on that one that I do think the Indonesians might win it. I don't know why I say that. Maybe I think it's because the Malaysians might be having their mind a little bit more focused on the following week in the All England. But if the Indonesians do win that match, then that will even more solidify them as my dark horse pick. So there you have it. Those are my picks. those are my picks overall, everyone. That's the last event. So, as always, thanks for watching. Do let me know what you think of my predictions. Are they rubbish? Are they good? Are they somewhere in the middle? Like I said at the start there, it's just all a bit of fun. It's very difficult to do. I think, like I said earlier in the video as well, outside of unseating the women's singles, everything is pretty open in badminton right now, which is really, really good. I think that might change as we go a bit later in, because there's quite a lot, especially in doubles events, quite a lot of new pairs. I think they're already starting to settle, and I think we might start to see a couple of pairs really establish themselves above the rest. But right now, it's very, very open. So yeah, thanks for watching. Be sure to get in the comments and let me know your thoughts on the video. What's coming up later for me, obviously I've got plenty of videos planned for March. I've got the All England, after the All England, obviously a Beckman's breakdown on that one. I've got another big video idea that I want to do over the next few weeks. We'll have to see how busy I am with other stuff. Obviously I'm quite close to 10,000 subscribers, so I'm going to do a 10k Q&A, and that will have a giveaway. So if you're not subscribed, you're going to have to be subscribed if you want to win that prize. I will obviously give you some more details on that when it actually happens. And lastly, there is some news that will be broken within that 10k Q&A video about the future of this channel, and just something that where it can go, that hopefully it can make this channel grow, and hopefully can help me make this channel even bigger and even better. So be sure to check out, to keep a check on me for updates on that. So yeah, again, for the third time in this outro, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Please do like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I'll see you in the next one.